Yo, what's going on, guys? So I was gonna get this video out yesterday, but my Windows decided that it wasn't gonna work anymore, so I had to reinstall everything on it. So it's a day late, but here we are. Today we got the A2 review, and I'm gonna try to keep it quick and short. So first we're gonna look at A2's skills, then look at her teams, and then obviously look at the numbers in the teams, and finally my final thoughts. So let's not waste any more time, let's get into the skill review. So here we have the skills. Skill 1 activates when using burst skill, affect self, charge damage 110%, and explosion radius 100%. Pretty basic. Skill 2 activates when hitting the target with full charge, affects the target, deals 30% of final attack as additional damage, and then activates when hitting the target with full charge, affects self, damage to parts 40%. So she's good for damaging parts, and also a good character for people who want to play her on auto. She does not require any input because you need full charge shots. Now her burst skill affects self, mode B. Own HP decreases every second while attack and charge speed increases. If own HP dips below 40%, mode B is deactivated, and this is very important for her damage potential. Effect 1, current HP drops by 4% every second, attack goes up by 15%, and charge speed goes by 35.8%. This is very important. This means that she has to be above 40% of health, otherwise she does not get these buffs right here. And this means that her teams are quite limited in the way that she needs a very good healer on her team in order to keep her above that 40% of health. So let's take a look at some teams that I think she would do well in. Here we have the teams. Obviously, I stated that she needs a very good healer for her in order to stay above that 40% health. So we're gonna be limited to having a very strong healer on the team. So here first we have Blanc and Noir. Now Blanc is a extremely good healer, but this duo is kind of outdated these days, not providing a lot of offensive buffs. However, on paper, Noir seems like she would be the perfect teammate for her, right? Affects all allies when HP is above 70%. She increases the attack, right? On full burst, affects all allies, increases the ammo capacity by 5. So for a rocket launcher like A2, this is very good. But in practice, this does not really perform that well, as you will see in the later section. However, moving on, we have Helm. Now Helm is one of the meta best in slot B3s for pretty much any team there is. However, in this team, as an off burst character, Helm does not heal enough at all, right? Not even close. So Helm is a very bad off burst character to pair with A2. However, if you do want to burst with Helm, she would be very good, right? She would be insanely good for A2 if you want to burst. Then moving on, we have the two supporting the mate duo. Obviously Anchor heals. So what you want to do here is make sure that on the same rotation that A2 bursts, Anchor bursts as well, right? Because Anchor is the one that heals. So you want to make sure that during that burst window, when A2 is dropping HP, she is also active and healing. So these are the support characters that I have. And then obviously we have Naga. Now Naga heals herself and is barely sufficient to heal A2. Now if you combine the HP that A2 loses herself plus the damage you're getting from enemies, Naga will likely not be enough of healing to keep her above that 40% HP threshold. So it's just one of those things. You need a very good healer. You could use someone like Bunny Alice. Obviously not that great, but provides pretty good healing and will be able to take advantage of another B1 that is very good, for example Leader. Other than that, you can pair Naga with Crown or with her duo Tia, but as you will see, Tia is just not that great compared to Crown. But the thing about Crown is that she is a meta support and she's very busy in all teams. so this might be a way to go right here with the duo. As far as the DPS characters that I will be comparing A2 to is Alice. Now Alice, what she does is provide a charge speed bonus for the team, so she is quite a good teammate for A2 who wants charge speed. Now, just to demonstrate how important keeping A2 above 40% is, for example, Alice's skill 10, skill level 10 of skill 1 provides only 11% of charge speed, right? Whereas A2 provides herself with 35, right? So this is more than 3 times the charge speed, but only if you can keep her above 40% health. So healing, very important. Now the second in line you have Asuka, and she is able to provide fire code allies with damage to core, right? 57% is very high, very good. Then we have Rei. You have another character that buffs the other B3, and she provides 24% attack as well as 46% attack damage to fire code allies, right? Both of these characters are very good for fire teams. Now they are limited, so other than that you have basically just Red Hood and Alice if you don't have these two units. Now let's see the actual numbers that these teams were able to put down. Okay, so now for the numbers and the teams. So first off we have Crown, Leader, and Helm. Helm is off burst here. Helm off burst does not heal enough, so most of the time she was not able to stay above that 40% HP, so her damage suffered quite a bit, doing less than half of the damage of Alice here. I would not recommend using Helm off burst with A2, that will not work. However, when you see right here, when I switched Helm to be a on burst B3 and Alice as an off burst B3 for that attack, for that charge speed buff rather, and so Helm was able to keep A2 above that 40% mark all the time, but Helm has to burst every single rotation. And then we have a different team right here, obviously switching to Naga. Naga is just barely able to heal enough for A2 to stay above that 40% mark, which pays off in quite a bit of damage. However, if A2 gets hit at all during the battle, Naga will probably not be enough to heal A2 and keep her above that 40% mark. But in this scenario, where she did not get hit at all, she's able to stay above and do impressive damage at 557 million and doing 70% of Alice's damage. Quite respectable in my opinion. Then we have the duo Blanc Noir. Very bad. This is probably one of the worst teams. Obviously Blanc and Noir are quite old characters. They're not doing the same type of support as the newer characters, and it's just not doing enough to support, even though she is able to stay above 40%, doing only 307 million damage here. And also Alice is suffering as well. And also I want to mention Tia and Naga, which is different from the Naga and Crown right here, right? So just switching Crown to Tia here results in a significantly lower damage. However, like I said before, you might want to be using Crown on a different team, since Crown is basically best in slot for most teams. So there you have it. Here we have the maid duo with Alice A2 and doing 324 million damage. Alice also not doing that great. And here I just wanted to put in a different rocket launcher character, SBS. They pretty much, A2 and SBS pretty much want very similar buffs. Here we can see that SBS is doing more than 3 times the damage of A2 here. So that just shows that A2 is really quite outdated at this point. Then quite possibly one of my favorite teams for A2 here comes with Bunny Alice, Leader, A2, Alice, and Crown. Now again, this is using two very good supports like Leader and Crown. She's able to put down a quite like mid of the road 413 million damage here, but Alice is extremely good at keeping her above that 40%. Most of the time A2 was staying between that 80 and 100% health. You also want to make sure that Bunny Alice burst on the same rotation as A2 for that healing, right? Bunny Alice being the 40-second cooldown character. Next up we have Rouge and Blanc. So I used Rouge here because I wanted to use Blanc with another B2 instead of Noir. So Rouge is in the middle here, buffing A2 and Alice. But because the buffs from Rouge are not that great for either of these characters, as you can see, this is probably the worst performing team overall. Then next up we have D, Killer Wife, A2 Crown with Ray and Modernia. Now this team was probably the highest damage overall team. However, it was no thanks to either of the actual two DPSs. It was because Modernia was dropping nukes. She was dropping 900 million in this battle, which is more than both of these DPSs combined. And obviously this is the worst number for A2 herself. This team is not doing it for A2. Then we have the three teams that are alongside with this team right here, the best teams for A2. However, as you will see, what do these have in common, right? They have Crown, they have Leader, and they have Naga, right? Three extremely good supports that many other teams will want. So I don't know if this is gonna be worth it putting them on a team like this. However, having Red Hood here, right, doing 505 million damage compared to 722 on Red Hood, doing 70% of the damage, pretty respectable. Here we have Ray. With Ray, A2 was able to do 595 million. And here we have Asuka providing core damage, 2 fire code DPSs on the team, and A2 was able to do 556 million damage here as compared to 854 from Asuka. Now the thing about these two teams obviously is that Ray and Asuka are limited collab characters, which if you do not have them, then you will not have them. So basically what you're looking at is basically this team with Red Hood and this team with Alice. Now these teams are basically identical with Leader, Crown, and Naga, and that's basically the best performing team for A2. And here, last but not least, I just wanted to compare both of the collab characters, A2 and 2B, in this pretty much like sort of best in slot for A2 team, right? We have Leader, Crown, and Naga, and A2 was able to out damage B2 by a very small margin here, doing 477 million damage here. Moving on to the investment, at this point being a 2-year-old unit, the investment that you will have to put into this unit is very high in order to even just keep up with the modern units. So for starters, I would recommend just going 777 and then having to go to 10 10 10 to squeeze out that potential in order to at least keep up somewhat to the modern units. And you want elemental, attack, and charge speed. Charge speed obviously being a good choice for her, as you can see right here, where I would have Leader, Crown, and Alice right here. That charge speed, I think it's like 12% charge speed or 11. She was able to do 557, right? And then we have an identical team where she does not have this this charge speed bonus and doing 505. So that's quite a significant increase in damage based on that charge speed. So it's important to get that as the third, basically the third line for your overload lines. Now the thing about her again is that in order to squeeze out that potential, you need elemental and attack on all 4 pieces of equipment. However, that level of investment might not be worth it for this unit because you're putting so much investment and resources into her, and then she'll just be basically just okay, right? Imagine putting that much investment into a unit that is very good currently, and how much that would pay off. But that's for you to decide if you want to do that or not. that's basically it for this section. Let's move on to my final thoughts. So now for my final thoughts, do I recommend pulling her based on merit alone? Absolutely not. She is one of the bottom tier fire DPSs alongside with B2. Now, don't get me wrong, I would love for these units to be busted, right? That's the whole reason I started playing this game in the first place. Because of that Nier collab 2 years ago, I pulled both A2 and 2B, and I was very excited to play with them. But over time, over the past 2 years, they really just fell off quite a bit. And I'd love to sit here and say that they are busted and they're just, you know, they're better than Rappi Red Hood, they're better than Red Hood and everybody else in this game, but they're just not, right? So based on merit alone, absolutely not, do not pull. But for collection purposes, I would get one copy of both. You know, it's good to have one of these units on your account. And now for the rating, you know, in my 2B review, I rated 2B on that low A tier. However, now that I reconsidered some things and looked at other units that are within the fire code DPS, you know, spectrum, A2 and 2B are quite comparable to each other and they're both quite bad. So I would actually be inclined to move them down to that high B, low A, high B tier at this point now. You know, in their post, ShiftUp has said that in the future there might be some buffs for you know, for these units, but I would not hold my breath. I would not count on it. At this point, we can just look at how they are right now without expectations for the future, and they're quite bad. And even modern meta supports are not able to really put them up on that pedestal to be, you know, as good as these other units. So you might want to save your pulls. New summer units are coming. They're right around the corner. They're coming out in about a week, actually less than a week, so I'll just save for that perhaps. And that's gonna do it for now. Please like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.